I don't think it's too much of a stretch for me to say that I actually like the live action Buggy a little bit more than a manga Buggy. Let's talk about it. This is the first live action where I actually don't mind some of the differences here and there. To be honest, I don't even think it's too much of a stretch to say that there are certain parts of the live action I may like a little bit more. And I think that in itself is what makes a live action not only great, but successful. Leave it to none other than Oda to show everyone how it's supposed to be done. Alright, so let's jump straight into it. I'm going to talk about some things that I liked and some things that I noted throughout episode 2. Okay, so let's start with the whole Buggy ordeal. Now in the live action Nami, Luffy, and Zoro, they kind of get confronted by Buggy on the seas, while in the anime and manga, Nami, Luffy, and Zoro, they weren't kidnapped and they officially met Buggy together in Orange Town. Now in the live action, they were kidnapped by Buggy, and I think that kind of puts an interesting spin on things as we know it. If you don't remember how it was done in the manga and anime, Zoro and Luffy, they kind of got separated at sea or whatever, and they kind of reunited back at this town. And in this town, we had Buggy and his crew, and we also had Nami there. And within this town, this is where Zoro and Luffy officially meet Nami. Now, I am kind of sad that the whole bit with this little dog protecting the store within the town was cut out. I mean, at least that's how it seemed looking at episode 2. Because I think that moment was really important for Nami to look at Luffy and pirates in a different way. And I think that exchange, especially with Luffy protecting the dog in the manga, helped open Nami's eyes slightly. Though I still gotta admit, I really love how Buggy was portrayed in this live action. Live action Buggy came off a little bit darker, and he actually had an actual circus going on, which is pretty cool. And he had the townspeople participating against their will as the audience. Personally, I think that's gotta be one of my favorite scenes in a live action so far. And I even think that the person that they chose to act as Buggy did a phenomenal job. I also liked how live action Buggy literally tried to stretch Luffy apart. And I will say, I like the exchange between live action Zoro and live action Nami here. Especially when Zoro kind of called her out on trying to ditch them or whatever. Granted, in the manga, Zoro was not there to see Nami basically give Luffy up to Buggy. So he probably would have said something in the manga too. We just didn't get to see that. Now there was a part of the live action where I kind of got Naruto vibes because live action Luffy mentioned something about talking pirate to pirate, and I kind of thought of talking on Jutsu just a little bit.
We don't need to fight. I can talk to them, pirate to pirate.
That won't work.
But I guess it's probably a really good way to show a little more of the influence Shanks had on live action Luffy if he's actually considering Shanks' words at a time like this. And I got to say, I'm really impressed with how this live action is handling the devil fruits this far, and it makes me feel reassured that the others are going to be just as good. Something else I kind of wanted to talk about was Garp. Now Garp doesn't seem to have any idea or any relation to who Luffy is in this. Now I say that based off how the red hair pirates referred to Luffy as an orphan in the very first episode, and I also say that based on how Garp reacted to Koby mentioning Luffy.
Yes.
Garp didn't make a face or basically react at all to hearing Luffy's name. And while we're on the subject of Koby, I really love how Koby was getting a little bit of pushback from Garp for joining the Marines, especially since he was seen around pirates. Because I feel like Koby kind of did get in a little too easily for my liking, so it's great to see that changed a little bit in the live action. Like as far as Koby getting drilled a little bit harder about his affiliation with Luffy and Zoro. And of course, I gotta talk about the whole situation with Shanks. Now on the internet, I kind of did see a few memes or some people poking fun at this Shanks in the live action, which I don't mind this Shanks. He's kind of growing on me, and the more he plays the part, the more I can see him as Shanks. And so far, I think they're capturing everything really perfectly with Shanks, especially with how Shanks saved Luffy from the little sea beast or whatever it was. I think they did that well and translated that well from the manga into the live action. I will say, from my perspective, it does feel like they're focusing more on how Luffy was influenced by Shanks in the live action compared to the manga, because live action Luffy is talking about Shanks a lot, like a lot more than I remember him doing in the earlier stages in One Piece. And lastly, I'd like to mention that whole bit with Shanks rescuing Luffy from that guy that kind of harassed him in the bar. There wasn't any really major differences with this scene, but I do think the manga events that happened were a little bit more cooler, and I think I prefer that. But that's not to say that the live action events of Shanks stepping in for Luffy is bad, because I don't think that at all. I'm actually very excited for whatever comes with this live action, because there are some differences along the way, and that kind of keeps you on your toes a bit and makes it a little bit more interesting. And it's also fun to compare it to the manga, at least I feel that way. And I don't know how true this is, but I did hear that this live action would be getting a season 2, and that kind of makes me worried a little bit, because this kind of opens up to more people and more things. But Oda has been doing great so far, so I'm trying not to worry about it too much. And from what I've been seeing on the internet, I feel like this live action is being received pretty well. But I would love to know how y'all feel about the live action. Do y'all think it's fun to keep up with the differences and pay attention to the differences between the manga and the live action? Or is there anything that you're not liking about the live action, or are there things that you like more in the live action compared to the manga? I mean, I think we can all agree, if nothing else, that the manga is definitely hands down funnier. I enjoy a lot of those funny moments, especially in the early One Piece, and I would like to see a lot more of those aspects in a live action, if at all possible. Anyway, that's all I have for y'all today. Y'all let me know how y'all feel. Drop some comments down below. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you for the support. Sierra Nova is out.